Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox and I'd like to welcome you to episode 221 of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. The FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report is sponsored by Advanced Compliance Solutions, your one-stop shop for all things FCPA compliance related. Today I continue my May the Podcast Be With You series with my good friend and colleague Jay Rosen of Merrill Brink. Today we explore Episode 5 of the original Star Wars trilogy, The Empire Strikes Back. The episode comes in at just over 21 minutes. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for listening. Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox, along with Mr. Translations himself, Jay Rosen, for the next episode of the podcast, Strikes Back. This version of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report, where we are detailing the first three Star Wars movies. Today we're on episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. So with that, Jay, welcome, and thanks for taking time to visit with me about Star Wars and hopefully talk about compliance and translations.
It should be fun. So where are we starting off? I guess the recap is that we are now on the ice planet of Hoth, and we get to see some very cool tanks that fighting with each other in the snow. And of course, the only way to take down a big tank like that is to wrap some rope around its legs and pull its bottom out. And I guess is that one of the opening scenes?
Yeah, it's not really the opening scene, but it certainly comes early in the movie. After Luke is captured by the Yeti or whatever they call the monsters, ice monsters on that planet, and he's rescued by Han, and then the evacuation starts, and we have the scene in the collapsing hallway with the princess and Han, where he kisses her, and she responds favorably, I would say, would be a delicate way to put it.
And we're bummed because at that time we have no idea of the fraternal relationship between Luke and Leia.
Right. So, but as you suggest, then there's a really spectacular battle scene with some spectacular special effects. Moving forward, Luke then heads off to meet Yoda and begin his training as a Jedi. Han and Leia head to the Cloud City, where they meet Lando Calrissian, a longtime friend of Han Solo, and indeed the original owner of the Millennium Falcon. And unfortunately, we didn't know, or I guess it's actually foreshadowed pretty delicately or pretty well, that things are not all as they seem on the Cloud City, and the Empire has already penetrated the city and has some fairly nefarious plans for our heroes. The movie ended with just a great scene that we'll get to hopefully at the end of this podcast, because I want to save my favorite line of the entire Star Wars trilogy for that. But the theme that I would like to explore, Jay, is what happens, what do you do when it all goes to pot and something has happened and it's completely unplanned and unexpected, and that seemed to be a theme of this movie. But from your perspective, what were some of the things that worked for you? Was there anything that didn't work? And, from your Hollywood insider angle, what did you see in The Empire Strikes Back different from A New Hope, Episode 4?
Well, I think, in the past we've talked about different types of, cereals and not Chex and Weetabix, but talking about the whole cereal aspect of Hollywood, the old two-reelers, the Buck Rogers, those kind of things. And, I think Lucas is brilliant in a certain respect by doing this with Star Wars and then repeating that with Spielberg on Indiana Jones. And although he's dressed these up as space operas, I think they really go back to another time in Hollywood. It's almost a more innocent time. And, you can't get any more basic than, the black versus white in terms of the thing. And I guess he's kind of thrown a wrench in it because the stormtroopers are all attired in white armor as opposed to wearing the black hat of Darth Vader. So I think he's very smart to utilize tropes and things that have worked in the past. And it's a little bit new, but it's a little bit old. And you've got that love triangle between Luke and Leia and Han Solo. So I think that all works. And from I guess Lucas as a filmmaker, he really put himself in a very unique position. Looking at Hollywood, most times directors are hired guns. They work for the studios. And realistically, you make a certain amount of money when your film is released, but when you become a juggernaut, if you're a movie like Frozen, and 2 years after your movie's out, you're still making over $1 billion a year in merchandising. And that's from dolls and cartoons and spin-offs. And Lucas was able to negotiate a deal where he kept the rights to the negatives of Star Wars. So in future installments, he was basically free to choose anywhere where he wanted to go to release them. He kept that relationship ongoing with 20th Century Fox, and he did that again through the prequels 1, 2, and 3, which we will refuse to dignify by name or talk about Jar Jar Binks. But anyhow, that really gave Lucas the power to become one of the most financially independent filmmakers. He was so independent that he refused to come to Hollywood and set up shop at Skywalker Ranch in San Rafael. So realistically, this guy who did a movie about, some guys, some kids cruising the main street in American graffiti was able to create a business empire that I think eventually was sold to the Walt Disney Company for $4 billion. So this is really, back to my comments in the first podcast, it's still that blockbuster mentality. And now with, episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, you're creating that expectation of that we need a sequel, and it's about trying to build these things out so you can come to market once a year. And it really foreshadows what happened with the Harry Potter series, with the Lord of the Rings, most recently now with the movies with Katniss. So they're really, this created a new and revolutionary business model. And it was something that, Lucas really kind of believed in this mythology, and he was bringing us all into his universe. And this was our second chance with The Empire Strikes Back.
Jay, one of the things I found interesting was that this movie was not directed by George Lucas, but he brought in his friend Irvin Kershner to direct, and Lee Brackett and Lawrence or Larry Kasdan wrote the screenplay. Of course, Lucas obviously had a lot of input into it, and we touched on in the prior podcast the hero's journey and how that in many ways informed the narrative structure of A New Hope. But here we see the hero's journey informing the narrative arc of a three-piece episode or trilogy. And here in episode 2, we have really the hero facing his greatest peril and his setback. And the movie ends certainly not on a positive note, or we don't think it's on a positive note. We don't understand really until the ultimate episode in episode 6. But the thing I would like to really use this as a springboard to talk about from both the compliance and translations perspective is when something does happen, if you find yourself on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Financial Times, you get the call that we have discovered, or we think there may be something askance in terms of corruption or violation of the FCPA going on. What do you do? And we have both advocated having a plan in place because prior planning tends to prevent piss poor performance going forward. And certainly from both of our perspectives, I think that is an important part of best practices compliance program is to plan for an untoward event. So maybe you could start off by talking about how would you think through, or how would you, I guess the better way is, how would you help a client think through an investigation protocol if they did wake up and find themselves on the front page of the Wall Street Journal and you get that 2 a.m. call from your CEO?
Right. Great question, Tom. The way I kind of look at this is when you have an incident like this of such, media worthiness, and, you have this potential to affect, your brand, the one thing you need to do is not only have this team in place, but, hopefully you have an opportunity to what I call getting the band back together. So quite frequently when I'm working on global investigations, there's either one or two AmLaw 100 or AmLaw 50 firms who are on the matter, representing the audit committee or representing the company. There's usually a big four forensics company who is going after the data, imaging the hard drives. And, we get invited into that, into the band to come on and do our role. But our role really is not usually brought in until maybe anywhere from 4 to 6 months after the investigation started. So I've had the fortune to work with a law firm and a forensics company on 2 successive matters. So it was almost like seamlessly taking the crew from one movie and moving it to another. So I would, argue for the thing that it's always best, before you have a problem to, audition some folks, figure out how they would respond to a situation like this, give them a hypothetical, and then if there are specific areas where you have issues in the world that you think that are at risk, I would engage a language solutions provider who has the skill and the know-how and hopefully the geographic presence there, so you could potentially work on some small projects. And then when you have something large happen at 2 a.m., you already know who those resources are. So, I think one of the things I take from the movie business that's amazing is when you work on a large movie, I worked on The Perfect Storm at Warner Brothers in the late 90s and early 2000s, and you get together anywhere between 150 and 200 craftspeople, and they all do sorts of different things. They're the camera department, they're with makeup, they're with props, and you shoot a movie with them anywhere from 70 to 100 days. And the real ironic thing is once when you're really good enough and the team is moving really fast and they know what they're doing, everybody was working from the same playbook, the movie's over, and then it goes into post-production. And at that point, everybody scatters to the wind. And from an investigations perspective, or from an audit or due diligence perspective, or even just doing compliance, I really think you need to assemble a team that is going to be focused on the issue at hand and is going to be somebody that you as a compliance practitioner can trust. So I want to give you a springboard here. I know you've got your favorite line coming at the end, but in terms of doing compliance, I think we should listen to this exchange between Luke and Yoda. And Luke says, "All right, I'll give it a try." And Yoda says, "No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try." So hopefully you can pick up the lightsaber there.
It's an excellent entree as to what I really wanted to emphasize. And it picks up on really the theme you set out, which is to have something in place, because I think we've both professionally been in situations where it was a very high stress. Some event had happened and everyone was running around with their head cut off and or looking like their head had been cut off. And if you have a protocol or plan you can fall back on, it can help get you through this, and so that you don't make a mistake, don't forget something, don't leave something out. And really, it's I don't want to say as basic as the following, but some of the steps that you need to think through are, first of all, how to open and categorize the matter that's been presented to you. If you wake up to it on the front page of the New York Times, that's certainly one level, but it may well come in through your hotline. It may come in through some other mechanism. But you need to categorize it and triage it and get it to the right people for further review. And then plan out your investigation beforehand in terms of your investigative team. You should have legal counsel involved. You should have compliance involved. You should have audit involved. You're certainly going to need IT. You're going to need IT to put an immediate document hold on matters and may well need to lock down computers as well. I think Mara Sen and some of the folks who have visited with me on this podcast about FCPA investigations talk about the need to tie down the evidence. So one, you can investigate it, but that's one of the first things the Department of Justice wants to know. Have you got the documents and evidence tied down? And then move forward to execute your investigative plan, whatever you've set out. Get your travel protocols in place. Make sure that there's adequate security if you have to go to a region that's either health or physical security are issues. Make sure that you've notified your board of directors, audit committee, or whoever up the chain needs to be notified, and that they are actively engaged to the level they need to be. You may need to, one of the things you may need to consider now, though, after the Yates memo is self-disclosure, because in announcing and discussing the new Yates memo when she released it, or when it was released rather, Sally Yates talked about immediate cooperation around the investigation of individuals, and the Department of Justice wants you to turn over information on individuals who may be culpable, if not immediately, certainly as soon as possible. And this is a change that you need to be ready for. And then determine the appropriate follow-up. One of the key things, both from Sally Yates, but also from Wei Chin, the compliance counsel, and even Leslie Caldwell, is what were your follow-up steps? Did you remediate? Did you do a root cause analysis during your investigation? Did you fix a problem so it doesn't happen again? And then did you take disciplinary steps on anyone who may have been involved? So have that plan in place and follow that, because that's going to be something the department, I think, wants to see, Department of Justice, and it gives you a way to structure the way you're thinking and justify that as having a reasoned approach later. So I think your thoughts on having a translation protocol in place are absolutely critical, because during those first hours, you may be on a plane to China, or you may be sending somebody on a plane to China, and you may need someone there quickly who can get to the documents, secure those documents, and get them translated to you so you can figure out what the heck is going on. So having that protocol in place, having it ready to go, I think is an important part of a best practices program, and extends down to many different levels. So I have been saving this for the end, but you're right. My favorite line from all of Star Wars is the following: "I am your father." So that comes near at the end of this episode, and it was presaged earlier. There are a few hints here and there, but I think that shocked a lot of people when that first came out. And it led us to really anticipate what would be coming in the future. But do you have a favorite line or favorite scene, Jay?
I think it was really that just Yoda, I think, is such a fun character. And, he's cute and cuddly, but he also does advance the plot along, and he is part of that crucial training sequence where Luke really learns to use and trust the Force. So I think it's probably one good score for George on the cute and cuddly continuum, and then he starts to lose us with the Ewoks, but we won't speak about that until the next until the next episode.
All right. Well, as always, thanks a lot, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thanks, Tom.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox again. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. Jay and I will be putting together our next May the Podcast Be With You, Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi. So if you have any questions you'd like explored, please email them to me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Also, I am putting together a list of questions for my next mailbag episode. So if there's something you would like explored, please email me and let me know your question. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.